Hey guys, I'm Pedal1258 here. So I've been having some conversations with friends and connections within the Splinterlands ecosystem about the upcoming second airdrop for the Conclave airdrop, and Zarin the Scorch, seeking feedback, thoughts on the meta impact of this card. And I am getting mixed reviews with respect to the quality and caliber of this thing. So I'm going to go sort of one more point on this topic before we move on. The conversation today is going to be the one piece that I overlooked with respect to Zarin that I really want to tackle today. I hope that sounds interesting. If it does, stick around. Otherwise, check out the next video. So I previously covered Zarin. I said I pointed towards significant offensive potential, particularly because it's dragon and it has a fairly decent damage output with the 3, especially in conjunction with the blast. The camel giving it space to breathe, like it won't necessarily be taken out, and so it can operate. Plus, if you recognize dragon, meaning Nidhogger, bringing execute to this card with a 3 bomb on the primary target, a 2 damage because of the blast to a secondary target, sometimes more than one secondary target depending on where that blast is landing in the first place. Adding an execute to that, I do think there's offensive potential here, in particular with the summoner available. Okay, so offensive, check mark. Defensive or support, you got the slow, you got the camouflage to give yourself some space to breathe, and the rear cleanse. I did not talk about the phase ward, and that's the piece that we're going to focus on here. But to set the stage once again, I think there's offensive potential here. I think there's good defensive support in the sense of the slow, which is always good speed manipulation. Rear cleanse guard is actually really impactful for reasons I outlined in the previous video. But again, we didn't particularly mention the phase ward, and of course it matters. Now, I had previously not really brought it up because, phase ward, in my opinion, I want to show you something. Phase ward, in my opinion, is not actually particularly versatile, maybe is the word I would say there. So I have the Jacarilla, the Rhyme, and this card is interesting because it has the phase ward. It also has the rear cleanse rear guard, which I talked about, in the tank, and the echo. That combination is so supportive, right? Great card, love it. I have it maxed out. But here's my, I guess, what this has taught me with respect to phase ward. It's limited in its functionality because you need to have cards that are very evasive, but they lack phase, right? Part of how Jacarilla is so successful is what? Who does it partner with? The dodge tank monster on the rewards. So let's go rewards, rebellion rewards, and it's a blue monster, and it's melee. There, Commander Slade. So Commander Slade has this crazy speed, 6 speed at the highest levels. It also has dodge and backfire. That combination is just the only thing it's missing is phase. And so yes, that combination works effectively. But if you don't have a tank with this kit, does this phase ward have impact? And there are dragons where that's going to be really impactful. Yes, 100%, I agree. But frankly, because of the synergistic, I guess, my mind thinking about the offensive capacity, maybe the support capacities of it, I just wasn't really drawing the connection that with key dragon monsters that's going to be really impactful. And in my conversations with my friends, we made one point. Phase ward is more impactful than you might first think. I overlooked it, and as I look at dragon, I guess if you had an enraged chromatic dragon, that could be interesting. Also, if you had redworm dragon with the 6 speed, the flight for the 25% increased chance to dodge, and there's a couple other examples probably. I just feel like that's very niche. So is the long and the short of this conversation that the phase ward is irrelevant? I don't think so, because as I alluded to earlier, Nidhogger just changes the dynamic of what's possible with the kit of this monster. So I pointed to how the blast with an execute from Nidhogger will be really impactful, but I failed to see what was obviously in front of me. This phase ward can be used in conjunction with Nidhogger into great effect. Picture a tank, okay, so let's build it, let's imagine a team right now. And keeping in mind with any dragon, with the dragon summoner, you can bring in any other tank. So, you could still use Commander Slade if you're inclined to use blue. If you don't have Commander Slade, you could use some of these other ones. If you're playing in Wild, the Red Worm Dragon, it would be feasible and a very interesting option. But if I can apply +2 speed to a monster that is relatively evasive, heck, there's I saw him here earlier. Where'd he go? How about this card right here? Let me go melee. Oh, Vruz with 7 speed base, and you throw a 2 extra on there with your Nidhogger. You make this a martyr frontline tank, and when it goes down, maybe you've got a resurrect behind, and you're proccing the resurrects. You're proccing if they're even hitting you, by the way, because 9 speed is crazy. You bring a blind on that team, and suddenly how are you taking it out? And that's, there's other cards like Runic Skyclaw. So there's cards like, Naga Assassin, and there's a lot of cards where if you just added 2 more speed to it, the phase really does matter. And so I guess I'm making 2 points. That Zarin the Scorch, the phase word ability in particular, is far more effective than I thought it would be. I didn't really recognize its significance yesterday when I created my first video on this card. I didn't focus on it, so I felt I had to today. And I think it's impactful. It lacks impact because the pros and the cons. It lacks impact because there aren't enough tanks that are just missing phase. If they only had phase, it's suddenly a game changer. There's really only Commander Slade and probably Red Worm Dragon. That's just not good enough. However, when you recognize that the Dragon Summoner that you're going to likely play this with is maybe a Nidhogger, and you can then add 2 more speed to whoever is being phased by Zarin, I think that may actually be a game changer. And so I want to circle back and just double down on my call that Zarin is going to be powerful and impactful. I still don't know if this is going to translate to greater involvement within the mage wagons and the conflicts because of everything I outlined in the prior video. Check it out if you want great detail there. But suffice it to say, the way that the second conflict is going to operate and the way wagon repairs are going to impact the economy of our choices around this, I have some expectations that there will be less activation, less CP spent chasing this card than there was with Ember Glaze. And if so, I'll just be happy because I'll get more airdrops for the same contribution of CP. I'm going to leave it there, guys. I really think Zarin's going to be powerful. I think if I was to give it a score out of 10, I think you're probably looking at, for the offensive capacity with the support functionality, I think there's a story here where you could, probably say it's at least a 7.5, maybe an 8. I don't think we're talking 9 or 9.5 or something like that. It's not carry. It's not, it's really, the story I'm weaving is really that Nidhogger can use this card. But again, Nidhogger is one of those monsters that one of those summoners that's already gone up the ladder in terms of importance and significance with the Conclave set. And I think this represents one more example of how an older card that was maybe slept on can claw back some of its significance or impact onto a meta. I do think this is a big help for Nidhogger. I do think Zarin is going to be powerful and allow a lot of victory. I don't think it's an 8 plus out of 10, but I think it's a strong card that we're going to deeply benefit from, particularly if you already have Nidhogger. I'll leave it there, guys. Thanks so much for your time and attention. Have an amazing day. God bless.